paying for something without hard cash, credit cards, or checks. It's a new form of virtual payment known as Bitcoins.
It is the world's first digital currency.
It was created about 3 years ago. Now it's starting to actually gain some traction,
as its value has increased by over 600% since February.
It's even being called the future of money. It's traded on the internet, but it can create very real wealth.
Bitcoin. As cryptocurrencies go, nothing is more popular or more recognizable than Bitcoin. As a purely digital asset tied to nothing material of value, Bitcoin has become a magnet of fascination, speculation, and exploitation since pretty much day one. With Tesla and other companies recently taking large stakes in Bitcoin, it's time to consider the nature of Bitcoin as an investment. Is Bitcoin a self-fulfilling prophecy of hype, or a trap for those with a fear of missing out on what could be one of the greatest investment opportunities of our time? Watch this video as I detail my take on Bitcoin as an investment. First off, I must admit that the title of this video is not a completely fair question. There are more possibilities than the ones I've mentioned. However, these two do seem to be the prevailing schools of thought. Also, this video is about Bitcoin as an investment, not as a technological marvel, nor directly as a viable method of financial transaction. With that out of the way, let's explain how Bitcoin is valued. In many ways, Bitcoin is valued like any non-productive asset. But what does that mean? Well, consider this. There is a finite amount of Bitcoin. Let's say there are 21 million full coins. If I were to put 21,000 US dollars into the system, each coin would be worth 1,000th of a dollar. If instead I were to put 21 million US dollars into the system, each coin would be worth $1. To be clear, this is an oversimplified and largely incorrect way of looking at it. The reality involves algorithms that price the coins to match buys to sells. Plus, I have completely ignored exchange rate fluctuations and crypto mining. But, for the sake of simplicity, it's easier to consider the value of the coins as being directly proportional to the amount of cash injected into the system. In effect, the more you buy, the higher up the price goes. The same basic principle is also true of stocks, commodities, and a whole bunch of other investments. There is also the question of inflation. In the same way that shares in a business get diluted when more shares are issued, currencies also get diluted when more of the said currency gets minted, something we all know as inflation. In the crypto world, this is achieved through mining, in which new coins get created as a reward for computers solving extremely difficult calculations. For some coins, mining is really easy. A good example of this is Dogecoin. The fact that Dogecoin is so easy to mine is the reason why it cannot feasibly retain its value and thus makes no sense as a long-term investment. For Bitcoin, however, mining is very difficult and the difficulty is increasing, thus requiring more and more computer power to mine a single coin. As such, Bitcoin is very resistant to rapid inflation, one reason why it's now being used as a hedge against fiat money, which is also not tied to any tangible commodity, but can have significant and rapid inflation. Okay, I hope that's a sufficient explanation of how Bitcoin works. In any case, it's high time I talk about Bitcoin's viability as an investment. From experience, the typical bull case around Bitcoin usually contains the following arguments. Bitcoin is a decentralized store of value, unlike government or bank-controlled money. As such, Bitcoin is much more secure than regular currency, which creates a potentially huge total addressable market and demand. In this sense, Bitcoin is like digital gold. Bitcoin also has the unique property of having an unchangeable limit on circulation with close to 90% of all the coins already minted. This is why it's highly resistant to inflation and thus makes for a good hedge against so-called fiat currencies. If all S&P 500 companies put only a single-digit percentage of their cash on hand into Bitcoin, it could easily reach the 6 figures per coin mark. If all companies globally did the same thing, it could reach a valuation of millions or even tens of millions of dollars per coin, compared to the only tens of thousands of dollars it's at today. By that alone, Bitcoin sounds like a great investment. However, there is more than one side to this story. On the Bitcoin skeptic side, a typical argument focuses on risk. Like all assets that don't trade on a sense of intrinsic value, the price of the asset is purely based on speculation. As such, if the mood of the market suddenly soured, the price of Bitcoin could come plummeting back down. In fact, this is exactly what happened in early 2018. Also, Bitcoin is far from being a mature asset, and thus prone to wild volatility. Whilst a trader may see this as an opportunity, a bear would see this as a risk. Also, whilst the bulls like the decentralization and lack of regulation, bears see the lack of protection, control, or any kind of circuit breaker as a huge issue. Indeed, even a bull would freely admit that the risk of Bitcoin is a lot higher than most traditional investments. Another point about Bitcoin worth considering is that it's not by any means the only cryptocurrency out there. Bears are quick to point out that the differences between one cryptocurrency and the next are fairly insignificant, and that there is little in the ways of a competitive advantage between the various coins. However, bulls will point to Bitcoin's public recognition and finite number of mintable coins as being sufficient reason why Bitcoin should be seen as materially better than other coins like Ethereum, Ripple, or Doge. On top of this, there are also numerous anti-Bitcoin arguments that are inaccurate, fallacious, and/or irrelevant to its viability as an investment. These arguments do have a notable effect on public sentiment, however, most of these arguments truly aren't worth mentioning, especially in the interest of brevity. So, you've heard the arguments, now it's about time I say where I stand on Bitcoin. Now, the first thing to understand about me is that I invest in disruptive innovation. So whilst cryptocurrency remains incredibly disruptive to the legacy system, in many ways the actual innovation has already happened. That isn't to belittle the invention of blockchain technology, it truly is an extraordinary feat of computer science. However, it is not the continual improvement and genius engineering I typically look for in a business. As such, I think it's fair to say that there is indeed little reason why Bitcoin would necessarily remain the leader in the cryptocurrency realm, besides the fact that it's already the most publicly recognized coin and has the most hype around it. And sure, Bitcoin does have the advantage of having a cap on the total number of mintable coins, but there is nothing stopping a competing coin from coming along and simply copying the Bitcoin model. It is for that reason I call Bitcoin a self-fulfilling prophecy of hype. Bitcoin is successful because it is successful. If enough people buy in expecting the coin to double in value, then inevitably the coin will double in value. In that sense, Bitcoin's success relative to its peers is not for any real reason other than the fact that it's already cemented as the cryptocurrency for a lot of people. There's nothing wrong with that though, that's just how Bitcoin, or indeed any non-productive asset, works. With all that said, you might think that I'm therefore against investing in Bitcoin, but you would be wrong. In fact, despite me saying that there's no intrinsic value to Bitcoin and that it's fundamentally built on hype, I actually think Bitcoin's growth is more or less inevitable, and that it absolutely could reach a 6 or even 7-figure dollars per coin valuation in the future. As Bitcoin gets accepted by more and more businesses as a form of payment, of course it will grow in value. Mainstream adoption remains to be had with any cryptocurrency, but it's looking much more likely that Bitcoin will be the currency favoured by businesses. I also believe that Tesla's announcement that they will accept Bitcoin as a form of payment will act as a huge catalyst for the coin's adoption, and that many businesses will soon follow suit. This leads me to one very important yet often completely overlooked consideration of Bitcoin as an investment. How does it compare to other assets? Now, you may or may not know this, but at present, practically all of my net worth is in Tesla stock. I believe Tesla is, objectively speaking, a great business with inevitable insane growth, unrivaled capacity for innovation, and a competitive advantage that is not only increasing, but accelerating. As such, I sort of counterintuitively believe that there is very little risk in being all in Tesla for the foreseeable future. The only time I would exit my Tesla position would be if I saw a better opportunity out there. I'm sure in reality there probably are better opportunities, but I haven't seen them. Or in the case of ARKG, I unfortunately cannot buy them as a UK citizen. I say all this to make the point that I do not have a high tolerance for risk. My investments may seem super risky on paper, but I am competent enough to know what I am doing, and as such, I believe the chances of my investments turning out bad in the long term are very slim. But I cannot possibly say this of Bitcoin. The risk of holding Bitcoin is, to me, immensely greater than the risk of being all in a super obvious god-tier business like Tesla. And whilst I do think Bitcoin will be immensely successful, I have no way of knowing when that success will come, how much of an effect on the price it will have, or whether some dumb anti-crypto regulations will mess things up entirely. To be clear, I do believe Bitcoin has an incredibly high likelihood of being an exceptional investment relative to the market. All I'm saying is that I believe Tesla is better, and importantly, much safer. That said, if you do have a high tolerance to risk, cash to spare, and a comprehensive understanding of what you're doing, then by all means go for it. There are countless ways of making good money by investing, and I'm sure Bitcoin is one of them. But for me right now, I've already found a good way in Tesla stock, and I'm not giving up on it anytime soon. So with all that said, I'm going to remain neutral in Bitcoin for the time being. Who knows what my opinion will be in the future though. This has been my thoughts on Bitcoin as an investment. I hope you enjoyed watching, and peace out. This is undoubtedly a very contested topic, so I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments. If you like this, or even if you hated it, I encourage you to share this video around. As always, there is more information in the description, and I'd greatly appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. I'll see you in the next one.